Good money, women's, and for friends of all kinds. It's me, Jerry the Pug. I'm sitting here with my daddy, and daddy says that we have to film at least a little bit of the Super Dick Sunday. Sunday. I'm not doing the head tilt for you, daddy. No, not today. I am just not in the mood. But daddy said that he really wanted to have me in this video for at least the little part of it. So daddy says he's going to just record a part of the video today. He's going to record the rest of the video tomorrow. And that way you guys can still see me in this one, because this one has a lot of furry animals in it and stuff. And it's all about forests. And so daddy thought, you know, since I like to come to the park and walk through the forest, and I'm a furry animal, that I should be part of the video. Okay? So yeah, that's what I'm doing. But I'm not overly happy about it because, well, by now you've hopefully seen the park trip video, and you know. But just in case, the park trip had kind of a sucky bit of an ending to it that I'm not happy about. Anywho, today Daddy's just going to show you guys the one section of the deck. I'm going to go to sleep now because I'm tired and annoyed. Yes. Look at my fluff. Look at all my fluff. Woof, woof, woof. Okay, Daddy. It's on you now. Alright, guys. Welcome back to the channel, and thank you for tuning in. I'm just curious whether I actually zoomed out today or not, so we're just going to put the first card there. Okay, we are. And today, we are looking at, as Kaiba said, my forest deck. This is actually one of the original, 7 decks that I built way back in the day when I first started playing the game. It is one of my most cherished decks. I have changed it a little bit over time, but not too much. But the big thing is I've maintained the art style of the deck, which I think is a really cute, adorable art style for the most part. And I'm showing you guys this one today largely for 2 reasons. One, it is supposed to be Yu-Gi-Oh's turn. And 2, I technically was going to do the red-green landfall deck. It is a Toph deck, but I haven't finished it yet. And so I want to finish that and present it next week, and then that'll complete this sort of land arc that I've done, where I did a landfall green, black, blue deck a couple weeks ago, and then last week we covered the Cody Every Guild Has Its Gate deck, which is essentially a landfall deck as well, to a certain extent. At least you want to get a whole bunch of lands out. There's not as many landfall triggers per se. And then the Toph deck, which also has not as many landfall triggers as you might imagine, but it's definitely a landfall-y kind of deck because of the earthbending nature of the deck. That's the third one in the set. So I thought this deck, being a forest deck, kind of fits perfectly into that montage. And so today I'm going to present at least one chunk out of 3 of the deck. I'm going to start with the smallest chunk, and we're going to see how much film I use up, because I need to make sure I save enough room to download the video from TikTok that I put up yesterday, because I forgot I wanted to put that up on YouTube. And then I want to also try and do the park trip video from today. If I can edit it all and put it together today, that would be awesome, so I can get it out for you guys tomorrow. I do also have to, of course, still get out before too late in the day the second bracket of round 2 of the Kaiba photo of the day contest, or photo of the month contest. So lots to go over. Anywho, enough of that. Let's get to the cards. The smallest tier in this deck happens to be a Crystal Beast tier. So this deck is essentially broken down into 3 tiers. There's Crystal Beasts, there is the general creatures of the forest, and there's a whole bunch of random cards that goes along with that per se. And then there is a small chunk of cards that are fusion based. But the final tier is a Naturia tier. So this deck is Naturia Crystal Beast largely, and then a whole bunch of random forest stuff tossed in because I like that. And that's why I built this deck the way I did. And it is a very large deck. It is at the max size for me. My max size was always 113 cards. I don't know why, I just really like 113 as a number. And so none of my decks are larger than 113 cards in size. but this one is at max size. So yeah, anywho, not counting the extra deck, of course. So let's get into this. We've got a Rainbow Overdragon and a Ultimate Crystal Rainbow Dragon Overdrive. Both are the only two extra deck cards for this one in terms of the Crystal Beasts. I do have another deck that uses Crystal Beasts. It is a, actually I don't think I zoomed out. Oh well, I'll zoom out for the next arc for sure. And I'll just make sure that I hold these down far enough that you can read them, hopefully. Gotta move my fingers so you can read the text though. As I was saying, there is another Crystal Beast tier arc in another deck that I have, which I'm going to probably present as the next Yu-Gi-Oh deck that I present to you guys, which is a Crystal Beast Gemini deck. And I think it has like the fossil creatures in it too, if I remember correctly, just because I thought that seemed like a really fun way to combine all those things. Anywho, this one, as I say, Crystal Beasts are not the most heavily focused group, but there is enough support in here to definitely do what Crystal Beasts want to do. So we've got the Rainbow Dragon, we've got the Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon that came out recently, and by recently I mean like in the last like 6 years. We got the Sapphire Pegasus, Ruby Carbuncle, 2 Topaz Tigers, 2 Cobalt Eagles. By the way, I'm going to geek out a lot over the art, which is the main reason why this one's so long. I love the Crystal Beast art, like, it is so gorgeous. The Rainbow Dragons I'm not as fond of, to be perfectly honest. I think they could have done a little better with those. But all of the individual Crystal Beasts are so gorgeous. And the way they line up with their individual crystals, you've got the Sapphire in the background of the Pegasus, you got the Ruby with the Carbuncle, you got the Topaz with the Tiger. Like, it's just such a beautiful archetype. It's definitely one of my favorite art styles in the entire series. TCG. Of Yu-Gi-Oh, to be perfectly honest. We got the Cobalt Eagles, like I said. Then I've got 2 Amethyst Cats. Those ones are very pretty. I used to have 3 in here, but I took one of them out to put in the other deck, because I think I only had 4 copies. I do have 3 Amber Mammoths, one of them being hollow. And I do have 3 tortoises, none of those being hollow. So like I said, there's just gorgeous artwork on all those monster cards. And then you've got the Ancient City Rainbow Ruins, which is a beautiful field spell, probably one of my favorite field spells of all time. It also has some really cool triggers to it, depending on how many Crystal Beasts you have in your spell and trap zones. So if you have 1, you can't have, this card can't be destroyed by card effect. If you've got 2, you can half the damage, battle damage that you take. If you have 3, you can send a Crystal Beast monster you control to the graveyard to negate the activation of a spell or a trap card and destroy it. If you have 4, once during your main phase, you can draw a card. And if you have 5 Crystal Beasts in all your zones, then once returned during your main phase, you can special summon 1 Crystal Beast card from your spell or trap zone. So it's kind of a lame number 5, to be honest, but the rest of that is pretty good for card abilities. You got the Rainbow Bridge to give you a Crystal Beast spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Crystal Promise gets you a Crystal Beast card from your spell or trap card zone into play. Crystal Blessing lets you target up to 2 Crystal Beast monsters in your graveyard and put them into your spell and trap zones, so that just helps fuel the Rainbow Ruins much better, which I have like the really special treatment version of that one, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's one of the rare super special treatment cards that I pulled. I'm just gonna pull it out so that you guys can see it without the sleeve on. That is gorgeous. Back in the day when they were first starting the Starlight Rare kind of series things. I think that's what that is. I'm like 85% sure that's what that is. Anywho, sorry. We were at the Golden Rule, which is a beautiful equip spell. And it gets to be counted as a crystal card, so it counts as one of the crystal cards in your spell and trap card zone for the Rainbow Ruins. I think. Let me just double check that. No, it won't. Never mind. Put 2 crystal beast monsters from your deck face up in your spell trap card zone, and then special summon 1 monster from your hand that is a crystal beast or your graveyard with a different name than the other 2. And then you equip it with this, and when this thing leaves the field, destroy that monster. So, not bad. I've got the crystal release as well to give them a big ass power boost, 800 attack, and when it is sent, this is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can place a crystal beast monster from your deck into your spell trap zone. Crystal Beacon to special summon crystal beast monster from your deck, but you have to have at least 2 beasts in your traps and spell zone. Crystal Abundance lets you put 4 of them into your spell and trap zone from your graveyard, which is crazy, but you have to send all the other cards on the field to the graveyard. Or no, you send 4 of them from your field to the graveyard, and then you get to send everything else on the field to the graveyard, pardon me. And then special summon as many crystal beast monsters as possible from your graveyard, up to the number of opponents' cards that were sent to the graveyard by this card's effect. That is my favorite card in the deck. It's such a wordy effect that sometimes I mix up exactly how it is said, sorry. I've got the Crystal Raigeki, which is basically a regular Raigeki, but you have to send a Crystal Beast monster to do the ability, which is fine. Crystal Brilliance. Gem Flash Energy, which I wish counted as a Crystal Beast monster, but it doesn't, but it's still a fun card to have in your in this deck. Technically not actually part of the Crystal Beast arc, but I included it in this chunk because of the fact that it looks at the number of continuous spells and trap card zone, continuous spell cards in your field, which all the Crystal Beast monsters that go onto the field count as continuous spells. So basically, you could do up to 1200 damage per turn with this thing. And then finally, the Ultimate Crystal Magic, which just does some insane stuff. Gets you an Ultimate Crystal Fusion monster from your extra deck onto the field as a special summon. I like this arc. I like these cards. I love this artwork. Like I say, the Rainbow Dragons are not necessarily my favorite. I think they could have done a little bit better job of making them more colorful, to be honest. I think that they're just too plain for my liking, considering all the beautiful colors that there are in the different creatures. Or, I gotta stop saying creatures, that's magic. In all the different monsters that you have, like the the Emerald Tortoise is like such a good coloring for that. Amber Mammoth, like you could have easily put some of that coloring into the dragon more so than just the actual 7 crystals themselves. So but anyways, where are we at right now? 13. Do I want to try and do a second chunk of this? I mean, I could probably... Let's do the fusion thing real fast. I only have 2 fusion monsters that do not technically... Or 3 fusion monsters. Besides the 2 Crystal Beast monsters. And a couple Naturia monsters that, of course, require Naturia Beast things. But these ones are all... monsters that can be fusion summoned. And then I'm also going to show you... No, I'll save the field spells for the next time. Okay, let's just do this and get out of here for this video. And then I'm going to finish this up in the morning, like I said, because I need to download that other video and post it to YouTube and do some other stuff too. I need to make sure there's enough memory for all those things. So, I have 3 things that I can fusion summon. I can fusion summon the Master of Oz, which is my favorite of the creatures that I can fusion summon. I've always loved this artwork. When I first pulled this, I made it my mission to try and figure out how I could summon it. And when I finally managed to get a copy of Death's Kangaroo, I was the happiest kid in the world. Because I think I pulled Master of Oz and Big Koala in the same pack. I can't remember that for sure because it's so long ago. But I might have actually pulled them both in the same pack. Then you've got Koala Koala, which I think is just a hilariously named creature. I do not own a copy of Tree Otter, but I can still make this with the other card that's in my hand here. And finally, I also have a copy of Chimera, the Flying Mythical Beast, even though I'm not running Baphomet. Same deal, I have something that I can do with that. Although I'm not 100% sure on that, the more I think about it. How does that work? Ah, okay, never mind. I can still do it, yes. Okay, we've got the one copy of Polymerization. It's the only copy of Polymerization in the entire deck. I do have a couple ways to get it back, but I mean, Fusion is not the main focus of this deck, so that's why I don't have a whole bunch of extra cards in here for doing it. Plus, there are a few things that just Fusion summon on their own, like the 2 Crystal Beast cards that I showed you earlier. You don't actually need Polymerization, if I remember correctly. Must be special summoned from your extra deck during a duel and special summon ultimate by banishing the above monsters from the field and or graveyard. Yeah, so this one you can use by banishing, and then this one has to either be fusion summoned or you can sacrifice a level 10 ultimate crystal monster, which would be this one, to summon this one. Yeah, okay. Anywho. As I said, I have the sea koala, I have the big koala, I have the desk kangaroo. I like this because it's like a very Aussie theme going on in the deck, and then just randomly there's Baphomet, or there's a Chimera and Gazelle. And then the card that helps me do everything is the Earth Hex Sealed Fusion. This one's kind of cool. So you can use this as a substitute for any fusion monster provided that, or any fusion material for a fusion summon, provided that all the other fusion materials are accurate. So I can use this in place of one of the Crystal Beasts that I might need to have for summoning one of the big things, or I could use it in place of one of the Naturia monsters, or I can use it in place of Baphomet or the Tree Otter that I don't own. Well, I don't own a copy of Tree Otter. I own a copy of Baphomet, but I wasn't putting it in this deck. What's nice about this is you can actually tribute this and the other materials to summon without using Polymerization if the creature that you're trying to get is an Earth creature. So if I don't have Polymerization, but I happen to have Big Koala and I have this on the battlefield, I can tribute both those to make Master of Oz without using the Polymerization, which is cool. And yeah, so I'm going to leave it there for now, and I'm going to record the rest of this episode of Super Deck Sunday tomorrow morning. And at that point, I'm going to show you guys the Naturia arc and the rest of the forest-based cards that I have in this deck. But in the meantime, in between time, thank you for watching this part. And shh, because Kai was sleeping. Welcome back, Yu-Gi-Oh lovers and card collectors of all kinds, to Super Deck Sunday. Continued on a Monday? Continued on a Monday. That's really hard to say, but I pulled it off, I think. So we got through about a third of the deck last time, roughly. And we got 2/3 of the deck to get through still today. I just wanted to say that I did a quick check online, and that card that we looked at the other day, I'm just going to find it super quick. This is a ultra rare, not a Starlight Rare. I was wrong. This was these cards predate the Starlight Rare series, but this is a first edition ultra rare of the Ancient City Rainbow Runes. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because the first card of today's group that we're going to look at happens to be, if I can just separate them into the piles that I want over on the side here, happens to be a ultra rare version of the Ancient Fairy Dragon. Unfortunately, this one's not first edition, so otherwise this one would be worth like an insane amount of money. But it's still worth like, I don't know, 40 something American, so it's pretty good. Even though there is a little bit of beat up to it, so it's probably not worth quite that much. But I mean, it's one of my absolute favorite cards in my collection. I treasure this ancient fairy dragon quite a lot, actually. Get off my ancient fairy dragon, whatever you are. There's a little bug or something that got squished in there. I got it. We're good. Now she's purty. Purty. Alright, so the rest of the extra deck for this is like the forest section per se. So this is just like a bunch of random things that I added in that all kind of either have a forest theme or they tied in really well with the deck. And so, like I say, we got the Ancient Fairy Dragon that I showed you. We've got a Baron de Fleur. Number 87, Queen of the Night. I like her a lot, actually. She's really pretty in her little artwork design there. Like I said, this is one of my absolute favorite decks for art. I mean, that is such gorgeous art. Even Baron de Fleur is actually pretty cool. Sacred Tree Priest Hyperton. Fairy King Alverdish. That one's a hard one to say. It is kind of cool, though. It has the ability to reduce the attack of anything that's not Earth by 500 and defense. That's not bad. Perialis, Empress of Blossoms, sorry. I've got a Black Rose Dragon. I think I might have two of those in here, but I can't remember for sure. Nope, just one. Volcan the Divine. Oh, that's right. I put almost all my Black Rose Dragons into that other deck that has a lot of plant stuff in it, too. Rika, Queen of Strena. This one, admittedly, is not super foresty related, but I just didn't have a better deck to put it in, and I like that guy. And I feel like he fits well as, like, the builder of the Crystal Beasts, is what I was thinking. At least in my headcanon. Ausa, the Earth Charmer, immovable. I'm not a huge fan of the Charmer monsters. I actually have, like, the vast majority of them, I think. Don't quote me on that for sure, but I think I have the vast majority of them. But I don't use them in any of my decks because they're just not my favorite cards in the world, per se. Although this one I really do think is cool. Traptrix Alomeris. I do actually have a Traptrick deck too, that eventually I'll show you guys, but... Melia of the Trees. She might be one of my favorites in this deck. She's so pretty. So pretty. Oh, I was going to say, I thought there was one more. There it is. Shinobi Insect Hagakurumino. Pretty sure I butchered that. So the idea being, like, there's beast warriors, there's plants, and there are insects, for the most part, in the forest, right? I know that I've got some dragons in here, too, and a warrior who is, like, the champion of the forest because, I mean, come on, Baron de Fleur just loves flowers, right? Come on. All right, let's get into her. I got a Chorus of Sanctuary because you needed some field spells for the Ancient Fairy Dragon, so we got the one for Ancient City Rainbow Ruins, of course, and I do I have one for the Naturia section, or did I take it out? I think I took it out, actually, because there was a better Naturia spell that I eventually got. And I needed space, but let me just double check. I did take the field spell out of the Naturias. To be honest, I was never super huge fan of the Naturia field spell anyways. It's really cute, but it didn't really help the deck a lot, in my opinion. Whereas Gaia Power is pretty kick-ass for any deck that you want to actually attack with. And of course, I had to include a regular forest because it's going to be a forest deck, right? So, I mean, that would just be wrong if I didn't. The Classic from LOB. I actually really like this artwork. I remember getting this card actually at a Canada Expo in Toronto back when I actually wasn't afraid of being around large crowds of people as long as, you know, I was with my parents. Fallen Angel of Roses. This is actually my favorite card in the deck. I love this card. I love the artwork of this card. It's so pretty. The purple is really cool. And I like her ability too. You can special summon this card from your hand by returning one face-up plant-type monster you control to the hand, except for another copy of this. And if you do, banish this card when it leaves the field. So you can get this into play pretty easily if you, like on your first turn, if you happen to have another plant that you play, which is kind of cool. Caribou. Yeah, that's probably the easier way to say it. Caribou, mystical beast of the forest. Pretty solid stat line there, and I mean, I like the abilities. When in attack position, all your attack position wing beast, insect, and plant type monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, so that's pretty solid. And while in defense position, all of them cannot be targeted by or destroyed by card effects. So if you had a way to actually get, this deck doesn't, but if you had a way to like switch back and forth between attack and defense each turn, you could probably make these things indestructible on your turn when attacking, and then make them unable to be targeted in defense mode, which would be pretty cool. I included one of my 2 copies of Garnecia Elefantis. These are the original cards that got me super hooked in the game. I of course love the show too, don't get me wrong, and the show definitely hooked me into the game too. But my very first pack of Metal Raiders, which was my very first pack of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I ever bought, contained one of my 2 copies of Garnecia Elefantis. And within like 3 weeks, I pulled a second copy, and they're the only 2 copies of Garnecia Elefantis I've ever pulled in my entire 25-year run since then. And I cherish each of these copies sincerely. My first one's in that really big 113 card deck that's just like the random mishmash of stuff that is like all my favorites from my collection. And this one had to go my forest deck because my forest deck is just one of my absolute favorite decks. So, Mystical Macrocarpa Seed. I like this one a lot. It's a good tuner. It can only be used for the synchro summon of an earth monster, but we've got a decent number of earth monsters in the Naturia set, so I'm not too worried about that. And there are a bunch of earth monsters here too, I believe. If I remember correctly, I know Perialis isn't, but I think there's at least 1 or 2 more that are in this pile too. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, it might just be the Naturia monsters that we're targeting with that, which is fine. Because the Naturia monsters are really important to get out, since they're the bulk of the strategy of this deck. I also have a Glow Up Bulb, which is another fantastic little tuner. Jerry Beansman, he's probably one of my favorite cards of all time. He's hilarious. First off, a superhero that's a jumping jelly bean is awesome. Second off, Jerry, a bean soldier, believes he is the strongest warrior in the world, but his true abilities are still untested. And then third off, he has absolutely no defense, which is hilarious. So he's just a really big, beefy, I'm coming in to swing, but if you put him in defense mode, that shield is completely useless. And it just makes me laugh every time I look at this card. I love this card so much. It is easily one of my favorites of all time. But I think I only have 1 copy if I remember correctly. I might have 2, and if I do, the other one's in my other super heavy plant-based deck. Sorry. I just noticed there's a crumb in the sleeve of the Fallen Angels, so I'm just going to try and get that out because it's going to annoy me. You can tell that I haven't looked at this deck for a little bit. No, I don't think I'm going to get it. I'll try and cut that out for you guys so that it's not as long as it just was. Alright, where were we? Blue Rose Dragon. When this card is destroyed and sent from the field to the graveyard, you can select 1 Black Rose Dragon or plant-type monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Mainly here to get back the Black Rose Dragon because the Black Rose Dragon's ability is insane. I didn't actually talk about that. This is probably one of the coolest... Out of the 5 dragon cards, I think this one is my favorite. A lot of people love the Stardust or the Archfiend, but for me, I think Black Rose is my favorite of all the Synchro Summon Dragons. So, when this one's Synchro Summoned, you can destroy all cards on the field, if you choose to. And then once per turn, you can banish 1 plant-type monster from your graveyard to target 1 defense position monster your opponent controls. Change that target to face-up attack position, and if you do, its attack becomes 0 until the end of this turn. So essentially, if you don't wipe out everything, you can just banish plants from your graveyard and make your opponent's monsters super easy to roll over. And I love that about this card. Plus, I love the artwork on this one. It's probably my favorite artwork of all the 5 dragons as well. Although, Ancient Fairy is definitely a solid run for its money. But yeah, I actually like, if I were to put them in order, for those who are actually interested in the lore, I would definitely go Black Rose. Probably Ancient Fairy is my second, mainly because of the artwork. Third is definitely Power Tool Dragon, though, and those two could be interchangeable. And then fourth is Archfiend, fifth is Stardust. Stardust is actually my least favorite dragon out of the 5. I've never been the biggest fan of Stardust. I do have a couple decks that run it, but it's not the insane thing, end-all be-all that I think that they made the show out to be for it. I wish they would have done a little bit more effort for the Power Tool and the Black Rose, to be honest. Homunculus, the Alchemic Being, I love this one because you can change its attributes, so you can change it from light to dark or earth or whatever you want each turn. And I think that's really funny. Boxer is a funny one, too, for this deck. When it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can place a counter on this thing. Then you can send this thing to the graveyard with 2 or more counters on it to special summon 1 earth monster from your deck. So I can get out my Garnecia Elefantis by basically tributing this with 2 counters on it, which is cool. Fencing Fire Ferret. Definitely a good one for this deck. If it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, target 1 face-up monster an opponent controls, destroy that card, and inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Pretty deadly all around. It's like a man-eater bug, but you don't have to flip it. Magician of Faith and Mask of Darkness admittedly are not very foresty, but I needed a way to get back my magic and trap cards because there's a lot of really good ones in this deck, as you're about to see, so... However, Pump Princess, the Princess of Ghosts, even though it's a zombie, it is kind of also a plant, so I thought that was pretty good. And I really like what this one does in this deck. So, if this thing is face up in my monster card zone and it's destroyed, I can put it into my spell and trap card zone as a continuous spell card. So it's like another Crystal Beast, except it's not going to count, obviously, towards those. And then instead of sending it, then while it's there, it's during each player's standby phase, I put a counter on this thing. And all monsters my opponent's controls lose 100 attack and defense for each counter on it. So the longer it's out and not destroyed, the weaker everything on my opponent's side of the field gets. It's basically what Pumpkin the King of Ghosts was supposed to do when it was in the anime, but the TCG kind of made it a weaker card. Now I've heard they made a reprint of that one, but I don't own a copy of the reprint, unfortunately. So Armored Bee, I like this one. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and half its attack. And now we get into the spells. And like I say, some of the spells in this deck, and some of the traps for that matter, are pretty insane. So, we got ourselves a Monster Reborn. We got ourselves a Swords of Revealing Light. Messenger of Peace. I like this one a lot. Because a lot of my creatures in this deck actually have pretty weak attack. So they'll still be able to attack my opponents, but my opponents won't be able to attack me. Or I can just use it to play defense. I do like to play defense as well. Scapegoat, one of my favorite cards of all time. Heavy Storm, pretty good one. Ayers Rock Sunrise, this one's a particularly fun one. So target 1 face-up beast, or target 1 beast type monster in your graveyard, special summon that card. If you do, all face-up monsters your opponents control currently lose 200 attack for each beast, plant, and wind type monster currently in your graveyard. And then you can only do this once per turn. So this is a fantastic way to do essentially a Monster Reborn, but only specifically for a beast type creature, which there's a decent number of those in this deck. But the main thing is there's enough beasts and plants in this deck overall that there should be probably 3 or 4 in the graveyard. So I could probably reduce my opponent's attack by a significant amount when I cast this. Or play this, rather, because I don't think you cast in Yu-Gi-Oh! I can't remember exactly the terminology. Yeah, it's play. Raging Mad Plants. This is probably one of the better cards in this deck for sure. All plant type monsters get 300 attack for each plant type monster in your graveyard. And then you have to destroy all your plants. That's the only downside. But if you use those plants to, say, synchro summon into things that are not plants, then you don't have to worry about that after the battle phase. Seed Cannon. Each time a plant-type monster is summoned, this thing gets a counter, max 5. When it gets sent to the graveyard, you get to inflict damage equal to your opponent equal to the number of counters on it times 500 points. So you could pretty much deal 2,500 probably. But you get to choose when you send this card to the graveyard. So if you're going to lose it earlier, you could send it anyways, kind of thing. One of my favorite equip spells of all time in the game is Heart of Clearwater. I've always loved this card. I think the artwork's really interesting because it seems like it's almost torturous, but the card is actually insanely good for the creature that you equip it to. So, if the equipped monster's attack is 1,300 or higher, this thing automatically gets destroyed. That's the only downside to it. But when this thing is equipped to a creature, that creature can't be destroyed by battle or by the effect of a card that specifically targets it. And then battle damage is calculated normally. So it's a really fun way to make something that you want to keep on the battlefield protected if it's got low stats. Synchro Boost, on the other hand, is going to give 500 points and a bonus level to whatever I equip it to. And then we have a Graceful Charity as well. Both of the Graceful Charity and the Heavy Storm are first editions from the Joey Wheeler collection, which I think is pretty cool. I also have a Painful Choice in here. And finally, the last spell in here, because it has a plant on it, and I've always liked this card, even though it is kind of silly in any deck that you can't punish your opponents for gaining life somehow, is Rain of Mercy. I've always loved this card. It gives both of us 1,000 life points back, but I mean, it's just so pretty, and it clearly reflects like what you want in the forest. So, yeah. Now on to the traps. I have an original MRD Magic Jammer. It's seen better days, obviously. You can see I've had to tape up the corners and stuff, but I still cherish it. I have a Horn of Heaven. Blossom Bombardment is really cool for this deck. When a plant-type monster you control destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends this to the graveyard, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. So, if you, say, use the Black Rose Dragon's effect to reduce the attack of an opponent's monster to 0 and then destroy it, you're going to do all the damage that the Black Rose Dragon currently has as an attack to the opponent, plus the original attack power of that creature as well. So this is like a double whammy. I love that combo in this deck. I have a Trap Jammer too, because why not? Negate attack. You're going to notice there's a lot of counter spells in here. There is a good reason for that eventually, or counter traps, I mean. Waboku is probably one of the best cards in the game, in my opinion. Any damage inflicted by an opponent's monster is decreased to 0 during the turn this is activated. Basically, it just nullifies all combat damage for a turn. Nature's Reflection. During this turn, any effect activated by your opponent that would inflict damage to you becomes an effect that inflicts damage to them instead. I like that one a lot. Speaking of reflections, here's Mirror Force. Gift of the Mystical Elf, just to give us a little life point boost. And finally, another one that gives life points, and another one that I've actually always really liked since the very first set that it came out in, is Enchanted Javelin. Select one attacking monster, gain life points equal to its attack. Essentially, this is a way to increase your life points by the attack of something that's attacking you, and then you only lose the difference between whatever creature it's attacking. Hopefully it's not attacking you directly. If it is, it saves your life, essentially, the Javelin. But yeah, I've always loved that card. And that is the, forest section of the deck. Where did I put... Huh. 1 second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. I had separated, 7 or 8 cards from here right before the blue rose, and for whatever reason I stuck them on top of the extra deck, and I was like, where is my extra deck? All right. And now into the final piece for this deck, my personal favorite chunk of this deck. Because this is the artwork that is just, it's such good artwork. I love these cards so much. They're so cute and adorable, and the first time I got even like 3 of these cards, I knew I had to build a deck with this. I knew I had to collect as many of them as I possibly could get my hands on and build a deck with this. So, the final section of my forest deck is, as you already seen, the Naturia section. So we're going to get into the extra deck first. We've got Naturia Gaestrio. You have to fusion summon it with 2 Earth Synchro monsters during either player's turn. When a card or effect is activated that targets exactly 1 card on the field and no other cards, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to negate the activation if you destroy that card. Plus it has insane stat line, plus it's really cute overall, but also fierce looking. Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree. 1 tuner, 1 or more non-tuner monsters. When this face-up card on the field is there, it cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects except during your main phase 2. So it can only be targeted after you've swung in battle with it, or if you choose to or not, regardless. But the rest of the time, it's untouchable. And then finally, Naturia Leo Drake. So it's like the evolution of the Leo. You've got the Leo Drake, the Leo Keeper of the Sacred Tree, and then finally the Gaestrio, which is supposed to be a fusion summon of that and the next card I'll show you. But first, let's look at the Leo Drake, because he's cute. He's a cute Geodayan. He's not got really anything going on other than the fact that he's a really beefy boy. So he's a beefy boy that does really nothing. And then he becomes an even beefier boy, but he can't be targeted by stuff. And then he becomes a ridiculously beefy boy, and he cannot, he can negate stuff, which is kind of cool. And you'll notice the attack goes up by a little bit, and the defense goes up by a little bit each time too. It's kind of cool. I like that set of cards. So the thing that you want to fusion summon the Gaestrio with, based on the appearance of the card, is Naturia Landois. 2350 and 1600, which is an interesting stat line, to be honest. I don't think there's many cards that have that kind of weird stat line there going on. The rest of the Naturia cards have to be summoned with Earth tuners, just like the Leo did. But for whatever reason, the Leo Drake did, sorry. But the Leo Keeper of the Sacred Tree, for whatever reason, doesn't. I haven't understood why that is, but whatever. Anywho. While this card is face up on the field, you can send 1 spell card from your hand to your graveyard to negate the activation of an opponent's monster's effect and destroy it, which is cool. Then I have 2 copies of Barkion. I have the regular copy, 2500, 1800. And while this thing is face up on the field, you can remove and play 2 cards in your graveyard to negate the activation of a trap card and destroy it, which is cool. I also have the Ghost Rare version of that card. This is one of my favorite cards in my collection. It was the very first Ghost Rare I ever pulled. It is probably the coolest Ghost Rare I own. Other than the, what's his name? Blackluster Soldier. I have the Link version of the Blackluster Soldier in Ghost Rare too. But I honestly prefer this one over Link cards anyways, so yeah. He's a beautiful limited edition, and I'm really happy to have a copy of that. Next, we have the fusion creature that goes with the Barkion and the Beast. It can only be fusion summoned with the above materials, so you can't cheat it out with the card that I showed you guys in the last chunk of this episode. And while this thing's face up on the field, you can negate the activation of a spell or trap card and destroy it by removing from play 1 card in your graveyard, and then sending the top card of your deck to your graveyard as well. Not too bad overall cost. And then I have 3 copies of Beast, but I only had 2 copies of Barkion. I don't think I ever got a 3rd copy, unfortunately, but I do have a limited edition one of the Beast as well, just like I did of the Barkion. It just happens to not be a Ghost Rare, unfortunately, but so Beast does the same thing as Barkion, except it does spells instead of traps. So during either player's turn, and if a spell is activated, you can send... Oh, no, it sends the top 2 cards, pardon me, from your deck to your graveyard to negate the activation and destroy it. Barkion removes them from the graveyard, right? Yeah. Okay. Now we get into the cuteness. The very, very cuteness. Not that those aren't cute. Don't get me wrong. Those are some pretty cute cards. I like this kitty. It's a very kitty. Pretty, pretty kitty. But look at the beans. Look at the beans. They're so cute. And they're so strong. They think. Once per turn, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. When this face-up card is selected as an attack target, you get to do 500 damage to your opponent. So, as long as you leave it in face-up defense position, your opponent actually has to choose to attack it twice and takes 1,000 damage to get rid of it, which is kind of neat. We got 1 copy of Mosquito. While you control another Naturia monster, you cannot hit this thing with an attack. And when your opponent does any battle damage that... Or sorry, if your opponent would do any battle damage to you via a battle with a Naturia monster, except for this guy, they take that damage instead. So the idea is to get Mosquito and Beans. I used to actually have 2 Mosquitoes in here, but I had to pull 1 copy out for another card that I got that was just a lot better later on. And I thought Beans was a slightly better version to keep in the deck. Sometimes I think about switching back into a second copy of Mosquito instead, but I think I like Beans better. Anywho. So the idea being, if you can get Mosquito and Beans on the field, then Beans protects Mosquito from being destroyed by any battles, and every time they attack Beans, they take the damage. So you leave Beans in attack position then. Next up, we got Tulip. It is a gorgeous looking tuner. Very pretty little flower. 600, 1500. While you control this face-up card, each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, all your Naturia monsters get 500 attack until the end phase. So you can just pump and pump and pump your creatures, which is cool. Naturia Eggplant. Well, this thing is sent from your field to your graveyard. You can select 1 Naturia monster in your graveyard, except for this thing, and add it back to your hand, which is pretty good. I'm not really sure why that one isn't an insect, to be honest. I figured that one looks more insecty than plant to me, but I will take it. We got a pumpkin. Pumpkin is so cute. Look at the pumpkin. When this thing is normal summoned, if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon 1 Naturia monster from your hand, which is pretty solid. Naturia Ladybug. When you synchro summon a Naturia synchro monster, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. During your main phase, you contribute this card and select 1 face-up Naturia monster you control to give that thing 1,000 attack points until the end phase. So this is a nice little guy because he comes in, he helps out your friends, and then he goes away. And then if you synchro summon something from your deck that happens to be a Naturia creature, you get to bring him back again. And look at the cute artwork. Look at that little face up at the top, the cute little eyes. I told you I was going to geek out over this deck. Naturia Beetle. I love this one too. It's got such big eyes, like my pug. Switch the original attack and defense of this card each time a spell is activated. So if you do it the right way, you can actually switch it and then attack with it and then switch it again so that it is solid for the defense later on. Naturia Cliff. While this card is sent, when this thing is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 and lower Naturia monster from your deck in face-up attack position. So this is a really good way to get out one of the 2 cards, either Bean or Mosquito, if you don't happen to have both available. Naturia Antjaw. When your opponent special summons a monster, you can special summon a level 3 or lower Naturia monster from your deck, if this guy's on the field, which is cool. He's a little weak, but it's not too bad. If you keep him in defense mode, he's going to hang out for at least a turn or 2, hopefully. Naturia Strawberry. Once per turn, when your opponent normal summons or special summons a monster, select that monster. And this guy gets 100 attack times the level of that monster until the end phase. So this is a really solid one for protection. And I mean, come on, how can you not like Strawberry? Look at the cuteness of Strawberry. I mean, Antjaw is very cute, but Strawberry. I love this plant too. Naturia white oak. You can see a little smiley face right there on the trunk. Yeah. When this thing is targeted by an opponent's card effect, you can send this thing to the graveyard and special summon two level 4 or lower Naturia monsters from your deck. They cannot declare attack, and they're destroyed during the end phase. That one is the only one I'm not a huge fan of its effect, unfortunately. If you are desperate and you need it, it is a good way to pull out Mosquito and Bean, just to give you like a one-turn save in Grace kind of thing. But it really is not the best effect ever. I mainly keep it in there because of the stat line, 1, and 2, I wanted, as I said, to have at least one copy of every Naturia monster I owned in the deck, which is why, again, I had to take one copy of Mosquito out. I want to show you why I took that out, actually, eventually. I just want to remember if I can which one it was. Ah, that's the one I definitely put in recently. Okay. Yeah, we're going to continue. Marin. If this gets normal summoned, you can special summon a Naturia monster, you can send one Naturia monster from your deck to your graveyard. And then once per turn, you can target 2 Naturia monsters in your graveyard and shuffle both of them back into the deck to draw a card. That is kind of a cool ability. I like that one a lot, actually. And he kind of looks like Karibo. He looks like a foresty Karibo to me. So I like that one too. Naturia stink bug. Ew, he's so stinky. Fart, fart, fart. When a face-up Naturia monster you control is selected as an attack target, you can send one face-up card you control to the graveyard to negate that attack and end the battle phase. I really like this card. Oh, you can send this face-up card, sorry. Not one card. But this is still a really fun way to just end the battle phase one time. Plus it's a tuner, so it can help you get out all the synchro summoned Naturia beasts as well. And the level's pretty decent for the stat line, so... all in all, pretty good card. Rose Whip! She's so cute, look at this smile. She's gonna whip you with her tank, the vine. And it's all thorny. Your opponent can only activate one spell or trap card per turn as long as this is on the field. It's like a really restrictive version almost of Jinzo, but it's not quite a Jinzo. There is actually a card in here that's very much like a Jinzo on steroids, but this isn't it. This is like the mini version of it. 400 and 1700 though is a pretty solid stat line, so I'm pretty happy with that one too. Naturia Stag Beetle. Stag Beetle's so cute. Look at those eyes. Use pincers. Once per turn, during your battle phase, or the damage step of this card's attack, when your opponent, during the battle step or damage step of this card's attack, When your opponent activates a card or effect, you can select one Naturia monster in your graveyard and special summon that card from your graveyard. So, basically if they try to do any sort of like shenanigans during your turn, you get a free monster back from the grave, which is pretty cool. Naturia Rock, solid all around. I love the little flower at the top. I think that's so cute. When a trap card is activated, you can send a top card of your deck to the graveyard to special summon this thing from your hand. So just a nice little way to get something else out onto the battlefield if you need to. Naturia Vein. I like how it looks like it's so like, I've got a secret to tell, but I'm not going to share it with you. You contribute this card and one other Naturia monster to negate the activation of your opponent's spell or trap card and destroy it. It's not my favorite effect. The main reason I keep it in here, other than the fact that it is a Naturia monster and I want one of every card, like I said, is the tuner ability. I mean, there aren't a lot of tuners among the Naturia cards. For the creatures that you need to summon, you definitely want to have a bunch. So Tulip was a tuner. If I remember correctly, I think it's just Tulip, Stinkbug, and Rose Whip so far, other than Veins. So that's 4. And I believe there's 2 more tuners in this set that I own. There might be 3. But I can definitely think of 2 off the top of my head. Anywho, other than that though, the ability is pretty decent. Just a little expensive. Naturia Cosmo Beat. Oh, this one's a tuner too. I forgot about that. Okay, there could be many more tuners that I didn't remember. When your opponent normal summons or sets a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. So another one that you can get out really easily, and then start building your forces up. Naturia Horn Beetle. This one's got a wicked effect. Ignore the 100 defense. That always makes me a little sad, to be perfectly honest. But the artwork on this one is so gorgeous. And when your opponent special summons a monster, you contribute one face-up Naturia monster you control, except for this guy, to destroy that special summon monster. So it's a nice way to keep your opponents from being able to synchro summon or XYZ or whatever. And it's not a once per turn thing. As long as you have enough Naturia monsters on the field, you can keep them from doing it for the entire turn. Which is pretty crazy. Naturia Sunflower. You contribute this face-up card and one Naturia monster to negate the activation of an effect monster. It's effect that an opponent controls and destroy it. So basically this is the other version of Stinkbug, or not Stinkbug, Vane. Naturia Sunflower, Vane, and Stinkbug are all actually pretty much the same idea, that you contribute them to get something really cool out of the ability. But Vane and Sunflower cost you a little more. Sunflower is by far the cutest of the three, though. I mean, come on, look at the sunflower sitting there on a little toadstool, hanging out. You can't use this one as a tuner, though. That's the only downside. I thought Sunflower was a tuner, to be honest. I guess not. Dragonfly. Pretty. Dragonfly. This card cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster that has 2,000 or more attack, and it gets 200 attack for each Naturia monster in your graveyard. So essentially, if you get more than 5 creatures in your graveyard, this thing can attack into anything on the battle, or protect you from anything on the battlefield. You're going to take the damage still to your life points, but it won't be destroyed. And that is pretty cool. Actually, you only need 4 technically to get there, but I would like to have the extra one. Oop, I skipped one by accident. Hydrangea is first. Don't cut off the lady flower. If the effect of a Naturia monster you control is activated during this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand. So as long as you've played any Naturia effect, this card can come out for free. 1920 and 2000 defense is pretty solid stat line overall as well. Now we'll show you the pineapple. My beautiful limited edition pineapple. 100, all face-up monsters you control are treated as plant-type monsters during your standby phase. If you do not control a face-up Naturia pineapple and you have no monsters in your graveyard except for a plant or beast-type monsters, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You must not control any spell or trap cards at the time that you do this, though. So, pretty interesting little ability. Nice way to get you an extra couple levels if you need to synchro summon something. I don't think you can XYZ something anything with the level 2 in this deck. But, yeah, I love this guy. Mainly because he works so well with that Raging Mad Plants card I showed you earlier. If he's out, basically all my cards count as plant-type monsters on the battlefield. So they're all going to get the boost from the stuff that's in the graveyard. Pretty insane. Little combo. This is the card that I was talking about earlier that's basically a beefed-out Jinzo. Naturia Bamboo Shoot. If this card is tribute summoned by tributing a Naturia monster, while it remains face up on the field, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards. This thing doesn't destroy them per se, but they cannot actually play anything, essentially. So the ones that are already face down, they won't be able to use, and they can't play anything from their hand as long as this stays on the field. This guy is crazy cool. Plus, look at his face. Look at his face. Naturia Fruit Fly. Aww. He's so sad, but he's so cute. All face-up monsters your opponent control lose 300 attack and defense for each Naturia monster you control. And once per turn, you can select one face-up monster your opponent controls that has 0 defense and take control of that card until the end phase. So that is pretty crazy. If you can get like 3 Naturia monsters on the field, you can reduce the ability by 900. And if you can get anything off their side of the field, you can swing with their creatures too. So, always fun. Naturia Ragweed. When your opponent draws a card, except during the draw phase, you can send this thing from that you control to the graveyard and draw 2 cards. Although, to be honest, probably not going to do that unless you're desperate because A, super cute, and B, pretty beefy defense for a level 3. Naturia Spiderfang. I like this guy. His fangs are made out of plants. This card cannot declare an attack unless your opponent activates a spell trap trap or spell effect or a monster effect this turn. So he kind of is like a really weird version of Jiragumo, except that he doesn't do damage to you. He's just restricted in how he can attack. At least that's the way I think of him. I'm sure there's a better reference, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Naturia Mantis. Aw, look at the eyes. Looking up at you with such happiness and joy. When your opponent normal summons a monster, you can send one Naturia monster from your hand to the graveyard to destroy that monster. Pretty decent. Pretty decent. That one combined with the one that locks people out from synchro or special summoning is pretty insane, to be perfectly honest. Which one was that? The Horn Beetle. The Horn Beetle and this are both like a really insane combo to have in the deck. This is the one that I had to replace the Mosquito with, because this is just such a good Naturia creature, and it was a new one for me. First off, Mole Cricket is cute as heck. And second off, during your main phase, you contribute this card and special summon one Naturia monster from your deck, or special summon two Naturia monsters if your opponent controls a monster with the highest attack on the field. If your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, or you special summon a Naturia monster from the extra deck, while this thing is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card. You can only do each effect once per turn, but I mean, this guy's abilities are insane. Granted, his stat line is terrible at 0/0, but he's basically going in and out just for the specific reason that you're going to be getting a whole bunch of stuff from your deck whenever you play him. So, yeah. I love this little guy so much. And finally, my favorite Naturia creature of all the Naturia creatures, to be perfectly honest, happens to be Naturia Butterfly. Oh, I love Naturia Butterfly. It's so adorable. It's looking at its reflection in a little drop of water. I mean, come on. Once per turn when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can send the top card of your deck to your graveyard to negate that attack. It is a tuner. It is 500 attack, 1200 defense. Pretty decent stat line for what its abilities are. And I mean, the artwork is insane on this one. Look at the little sparklies in his wings. Oh. It is my favorite of the Naturia creatures by far. By far. We have some Naturia spells and traps. Not a lot, just a couple to get through real quick. We got Leo Drake's Mane, which boosts an attack of one Naturia creature by 3,000, but its effects are negated until end of turn, unfortunately. Still an insane power boost. Landoise's Luminous Moss. If you control a face-up Naturia monster, the opponent's effects monsters cannot activate their effects during the turn that this thing is activated. The only downside to these is they're not quick spells. If all of these were quick play spells, they would be insanely good. Activate only if you control a face-up Naturia monster. Your opponent cannot activate trap cards this turn. Naturia's Blessing happens to be a quick play spell, and you can pick any one of these effects. Special summon a Naturia monster from your hand or graveyard. Immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon a synchro monster using monsters you control as material, including a Naturia monster. Or fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as material, including a Naturia monster. So this is another way to fusion summon that big beefy boy if I can't happen to get out my Polymerization. Finally, Exterior's Fang. You can only activate it if it's a Naturia monster, but since it's a trap card, you can do it on an opponent's turn at least. And you have to have at least one card in your hand. You negate the activation of the opponent's spell or trap card and destroy it, and then you send the card from your hand to the graveyard. And finally, Naturia Sacred Tree, which it reminds me of like the idea of the World Tree for this deck, so it's like one of my favorite cards in this deck by far. If this card is sent to the graveyard, add one Naturia card from your deck to your hand, except for Naturia Sacred Tree. You can only use one of the following effects of Sacred Tree per turn, and only once during that turn. You contribute one level 4 insect monster, you contribute one Earth insect type monster and special summon one level 4 or lower Earth plant type monster from your deck. Or you can contribute one Earth plant type monster to special summon one level 4 or lower Earth insect type monster from your deck. So this is a really fun way to get out Bean and Mosquito if I don't have access to them by sacrificing some of the other Naturia creatures on the board. But I mean, honestly, It's just such a good little archetype, and it's so adorable, and it is by far one of my most treasured and favorite archetypes in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our forest deck video, which happened to go insanely long, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to put this all together today, but we're going to try. Hopefully, I will have enough memory space to do it. But yeah, from Kaiba, who is now at home, and myself, who is in the car, to you, take care. Thank you for watching this long Yu-Gi-Oh! Video if you happen to make it all the way through. Much love to you all. Take care, and have a great Monday. All right, love you. Bye.